Okay, folks, your break is outside, which you can take at any time, and we'll start the reports at 3:15. Okay, this group on the right gets first prize for persistence because they've worked through loss of power and break time, and it's still going strong. Yes, I never got to finish my PowerPoint, but I think we somehow managed to go ahead for a short while without the technology. Or I shouldn't say that, without power, because we use the technology to get the information around. So yes, we are down to the last leg of our race here to the end. And what is left is basically to hear from the various groups in the feedback from their discussions, and then get your general comments about anything related to the 13 CIGF and even going forward in an open microphone session. So I know we had 3 groups in the room. I believe we had 2 working off-site, the Barbadians and Simmons the Grenadines. I'm not sure about the Trinidad and Tobago group. We did not really hear from them today, did we? Just logged on. Okay. So we could probably seek to get started. Anyone in this room wants to go first? They all seem so eager. Or I wonder if any of our online, they can't do a live sub. Okay. No message from St. Vincent. All right. Well, we'll go with what we have in the room. So who would give us some impressions here, in terms of your discussions? And we don't get out until we get them. Yep. I see the group on the right still working, apparently. I know we had a group on this side and some others in the middle, but what's happening? I'm not sure. Are the spokespersons outside of the room? Uh-huh. We were to wait for someone. I don't know that we. Yes, thank you.
Okay, what we did, having read all the documents and taking our personal experience at LAC IGF and TTIGF into consideration, we started off with our chapters. So chapter 1, introduction. What is an IGF? Definition, principles, clarification on the principles to make sure that people understand the difference between an IGF and a regular vanilla internet event. Then we went into what is an NRI and the characteristics of those and why should you have one. because a lot of people
Okay.
feel they want to have one, but when they realize, you know, when you make them think as
Right.
to why do you really want to have this?
Right.
Is this what you really need, or is it some other kind of event you need?
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 2, how to structure. So we have our multi-stakeholder convening group. We need, from the UNIGF NRI toolkit, we took the part about having a minimum of 3 kinds of stakeholder groups. And this is something that I was talking about with some other people who are looking at starting an IGF. And they're saying, well, they can't build, the last event they had government and business, and so they need to really take some time and do that outreach before they can start. And then that group, when you send out a call for people and you formulate the group, we would have to give them a list. There's a list of baseline responsibilities. And then that group determines their own terms of reference, including their roles, their responsibilities, the way they would manage to sustain themselves. What? Rotation. Yeah, well, that's the next point. Renewal and rotation of representatives from the stakeholder groups, and of course, reaching out to include more stakeholder groups until you get to all of them, because you could start with 3, but really there are 5 or 6. And it is very important for them all to agree on these terms of reference and have it formalized somehow, whether it's a MOU between the various organizations that are putting into this multi-stakeholder group or whatever. And they also all have to focus on the outcomes that they want. And then chapter 3, planning an event. Budget, we have items to expand on. That would be an appendix. Fundraising, a document that explains 2 things that we want: partnership, not sponsorship, and what that means, and some sort of training for the sponsorship, for the people in charge of fundraising, in order to go out there and do that, as well as sample letters and so forth. Then we go on to the choice of venue, which is which is connected to your budget, but it might also be connected to your topic.
What the agenda is.
Yeah. And so one of the considerations that apparently people thought was cool is one of the things that we thought was a problem with the TTIGF, which is we undercated for the number. So you have a small number of people in the room, but a vast online participation. So that's one of the considerations that people might think about you doing if they are concerned about the budget or the venue or anything like that. And then we went into content, the need for a pre-information cycle, where the multi-stakeholder steering group, or whatever they call themselves, needs to summarize an overview of issues in the environment or the community in which they're functioning, and use that to inform the call for content topics, which is an open call to all stakeholders. Before that, well, there's also stakeholder engagement, which kind of goes before that, which is how do you get, there's a whole section, and how do you get to the stakeholders that you want to participate in this event. And that would include messaging by various groups, slice and dice, and focus messaging for each group, not just age and not just interest. But you have to, right now, you have to go really tiny group slices, as well as utilizing the appropriate media. And we can't just think of new media and social media. We have to think of whatever media works. So if we are considering, for example, blind as a subgroup, we would need to utilize media that works with them, which is internet, at least radio. because you can't really send out Braille everywhere, and a lot of blind people actually don't know Braille. But anyway, and also to do a lot of face-to-face and use connections. So I know you, and you know somebody, and I tell you to tell that person, and that person to tell, and bring your friends, like the Clara lad, and so on and so on and so on. You tell a friend, and that friend tells a friend, and so on. So use connections and networks. Focus on all groups, because inclusion means we have a broader type of content. So having gotten our content topics, we then do a nice little qualitative theme analysis of the content and bucket them into themes, and determine which ones that you want to do based on your budget and your actual capacity. Each person on the multi-stakeholder organizing group takes a bucket, or maybe two, depending on how many they have, and develops it for the event, whether it be a workshop, a panel, whatever kind of event they're going to do. They take responsibility for that. They may not be the person who is the most knowledgeable on the topic, but they will find those people, but basically they take ownership of that one, and they are responsible for making sure it happens on the day. And so each topic has a shepherd,
Right.
who shepherds it through the entire process. There's a suggestion that we have in there types of events that we can have, not just panels. Panels are good for new knowledge, but use other formats. So we would have to have some sort of listing of the other formats that might be helpful, and under what circumstances or what kinds of outcomes those would be useful. No, we only have a couple more pages.
Oh, okay.
We then went into the technical requirements for the venue: power including generator, dedicated bandwidth. Basically, if we're doing a proper thing, we were saying that we would like a minimum of 20 meg upload for our video and so on. Appropriate room for the video, that is like ability to be properly lit, so that if you have, say, a podium, the heads are not bumping the ceiling, so there's room for proper lighting. Audio setup, desktop mics, panels, etc. At least 2 cordless for audience, and 1 dedicated for the remote moderator, because that is something that worked really well with us in Trinidad. So, because it is really annoying to people when the microphone is removed from them and run to the back of the room, and they're like, but I was supposed to talk, and they get really annoyed. So if that person just has a microphone by themselves, that makes it much easier for the remote participation to come through. Right, and then we went into video, light setup, a minimum of a 2-camera setup with live switching available. For transcripts, we have a note for computer-aided transcript, like the people who do the transcripts in the court. They are available. We thought about adding protocol information, including who to invite, how to find out who the effective person is, because it may not be the minister or the CEO or so on. So who to talk to, how to get, and who that person, and how we should invite with the invitation, so that it gets where it's effective. Timing of invites, for example, for ministers and CEOs, you need a 3-4 month advance invitation because of their timing. Certain days, especially like we know in Trinidad, Parliament is on usually a certain day. If somebody's a senator, they normally open on Parliament happens, Senate on a Tuesday, House on a Friday, Constituency Day on a Thursday. So we know, you kind of know what day to, but that's information that will change from place to place, but that is something that people need to know.
Yeah.
If you want the minister there, you have to make sure that it's a day the minister can come. We talked about funding of marginalized groups to
attend
the event, which is interesting because if it's in-house, if it's in the same country, so we don't have to talk to Liat and so on, and fly in hotels and so forth so much, we could just bust them in or something. But a small expenditure like that can make a big impact. So it was really talking about getting, yet again, we use blind people as the example. And then we went on to resource personnel required, the rapporteurs with multiple rapporteurs with knowledge of the ICT terminology in the event. And we needed, in order to have the breakout groups not be burdened with their own rapporteuring. You have a rapporteur for each group, and also make sure that they record the session, so that you also have you can get an actual transcript of the discussions.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you summarize, you lose a lot of the nuance, and the nuance might be important. Moderators, we need to include training for the moderators of each panel. Online moderators, that also needs training. The video team, the photography team, the social media team, the transcription team, and the media team, which is regular media, not the media. The event team, the ones who are dealing with the logistics of the event, like the water and the food and so on and so forth and so forth. Post-event. Well, the rest of it comes from basic standard, bog standard event management planning thing. So we were going to insert that there. And then post-event, the steering group, we get a detailed reading of all inputs, which is where the transcripts from everywhere comes in, and use those as a basis for the intersessional work and process. Follow-up would include mediatization of the content from the event, press releases, talk shows, etc., advocacy and lobbying, in-depth research, because you will find areas when you do your deep dive into the transcripts and stuff where there are interesting areas for research, and publicity campaigns. And that's kind of where we stopped so far. We have a little bit to go yet still, but...
Like what? Because
that's it for now.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, other things would be how to get speakers and, that kind of thing, because there's something a lot of people don't know, which is there are a lot of resource. Well, the UN, IGF, has a page with resource persons, and you can contact them, and, but there are other places that offer, like, it's part of the work of a lot of universities to offer professors and stuff at their own cost to come and talk. And is a north-south share the knowledge to poor people thing. But there are many universities that do that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So you can contact them and have, somebody specialized in a particular area to come and talk at your thing for minimal cost.
Right.
So that sort of thing is still to come in. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, and how does that compare with what you saw in the source documents?
Oh, we're much more detailed. Much more detailed. We pulled some of the stuff out of the source document, but we pulled some of the stuff out of the UN source document, and then we basically went through event planning process with experience, tossing in things that we needed to know, that we think other people would need to know, that we know now.
All right. Well, maybe you could put down for us the different, like a table of contents, and as necessary, put in any explanatory note for this section should have that sort of thing, which looks like what you were writing down. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. Please.
Headings.
Thank you very much. So yeah, you sounds like you got the prize in truth. Very, very good. Very, very comprehensive, I would say.
That's what happens when you work through the break.
Yes. The only thing is like taking it forward from there now. How do you actually take it forward? So if I get it, it goes into the report, and then how do we develop it further?
Well, the way I would develop it further would be to crowdsource it, basically put up a Google Doc,
Let somebody
and
do this
let
part and that
let
part and
everybody
that
write
thing.
in what they think, or copy and paste in what they think they need, how they think things could, what information they want to add, and then have a pen holder who pulls it together, edits it, and
Right.
you have, and lo and behold, you have a book.
Yes, indeed. I know Ashel had the experience and Roxanne as well with their ones this year. From what you just heard Jacqueline talk about, would that have been useful to you all in terms of preparing the thing, or was it a lot more than you wanted, or what?
So I think it definitely could be useful. My concern is being for people who are planning their first IGF, especially if it's going to be a pretty small one, it may seem overwhelming. I'm also a little, my concern also is that there needs to be, well, not need to be, it'll be helpful if we standardize it, right? So there's a toolkit, right? But that we leave enough room for the individual initiatives to be what they would have organically grown to be. I think that that's really, really important, because as similar as we are in the region, we are also unique each and every country, right? And I think that we have to be mindful of, in trying to make it as easy as possible to have an IGF by saying you do this, you do that, you do the next thing, that we don't make it so that all the IGFs are essentially the same, and the individual issues don't bubble up to the top, so to speak.
Okay.
All right. Ashal, I know, as a matter of fact, we had that same comment that it's sounding overwhelming, okay, by a member of the group. But really and truly, when you Gantt chart that, for example, all the activities are not going to be taking place at the same time. So when you put it on a Gantt chart and you see your timelines, it's only then you realize how workable and how easy it is to manage. The secret is timelining it. In other words, list the activities, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, how much ever chapters you have. And you could have your template, and your own personal IGF will be different from one I have, or CIGF, or anything, because you will have other elements. You may want to include other elements in yours. So chapter 1 might be the introduction. Well, that might be standard. Chapter 2 is something else. You will have other elements that you'll put in there. But each one of the chapters will have their own timeline. And your timeline will be different to my timeline. I may have to give my minister 6 months' notice. Because you are closer related to your minister, you know, my 2 months' notice might be good. I just say it, okay? So the timelining is important. So there will be differences in the IGFs, but what makes it very workable and extremely manageable is a Gantt chart. That goes without saying, okay?
You have an idea what the timeline was? Oh?
We work with a year, but what I said, what happens is that there are lists of things that have to be considered. So if you don't have to consider it in your situation, you don't have to consider it. But it is something that we put down all the things that we think. It's very flexible, because we put down all the things that people might forget, that may mess you up by later on. So when you look at it, when you pull yourself together 6 months in advance or whatever, you say, okay, there's a thing here that says it's difficult to get ministers and CEOs. So I need to talk, maybe I need 4 months, maybe I need 2 weeks. But it's something to note that if you do need 3 months, so we let you think about it 4 months ahead. And if you find that you don't need 4 months, that's fine. It's not a prescriptive thing. It's more like how to manage an event guidebook. The same way you'd buy one, a generic how to manage an event guidebook, and in the back you'll see templates for how do you write a letter to, what kind of protocol would one use, what kind of this, that, and the other. That's kind of exactly what it is. So it will be, how, if you don't know how to do a budget for an event, there'll be a sample which you could use or not use or throw it away or whatever if you want. But it's just that kind of book is what we were thinking of when we were doing it. An advisory thing. It's not, because everywhere is different and every event is different. So that's why we said, well, you can do things depending on your fundraise, depending on your funding. It could be small with a large online, or you can have a large ballroom, or you can go to, you know, the venue varies depending on what you want. But the point is that you must know your outcomes. And there's certain things you have to do before you do other things.
Deirdre?
I'm glad for what Jacqueline just said, and some of it's what I applauded Ashel, because I was actually there at the IGF, whichever one it was, Baku, Istanbul, where Marilyn Cade was very active in starting this NRI movement. And several of us were very concerned that we might end up with a generic product, which is what you're concerned about. And I think all of us should be concerned about that, because we're not all concerned about the same things. So that's that for supporting Ashel and supporting what Jacqueline has just said. From my point of view, one of my things for several years now has been about remote moderation. Mm-hmm. But to go back before that, I would like to see all of the meetings here have pay a lot of attention to being to making it a priority that they are available online to groups and to individuals, because even in a little island, it can be a major hassle to get the 1 hour from one end of the island to the other end of the island for a meeting. And also, I find it rather reprehensible that all of us go around shouting about how wonderful the internet is and isn't it great, and then we all have to get in a room together to have the meeting. So we need to create a, can't remember the word, an atmosphere within which remote attendance is just as legitimate as in situ attendance. And if you're doing it, please have the remote moderator somewhere where they are in direct contact with the panel moderator, the person in the front. That I got caught in Brazil. You were at that meeting. I was moderating one of the big sessions, and I was way at the back. And they couldn't see me, and they couldn't hear me, and they didn't know, and yes, it was important. So please put that into your rules and instructions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Justin?
That is actually in the whole section on remote moderation and the rules and UFOs and why they have to have their own microphone and all that. That's in there.
Forgive me if I'm missing it, but another important aspect to consider is the legal aspect of things. Sometimes when you're dealing with collaboration between various bodies, it's important to get things written down and in great detail. It helps to resolve issues quickly when you have it already written down, and sometimes I have seen a case once where after an event was held, an issue arose regarding payment of a bill, right? And who
Issue arose regarding what?
Payment of a bill after the event arose. So sometimes it's good to have these things in writing. Another situation I can think of is an IT event that was being held for minors, and it was being held at a hotel. Mm-hmm. And in that particular case, we had to have them sign, or their parents sign waivers, because there was a pool on the compound, right? And no one wants to think about these things, but sometimes it's important to consider the legal
liabilities.
Right. Okay.
activities came in under the general event planning thing that we didn't go through the details of that. But budgeting, contracting, all of that would be in that standard event management thing.
Asha?
That came up in our IGF as well, where we actually we received in-kind sponsorship for the venue for the opening ceremony, but we did have to pay public liability insurance and some other costs associated with that. I'm not sure if it's necessarily like a legal issue, because at first, at the beginning of the comment, I wasn't sure where that was going, like whether you were suggesting that it needs to be like MOUs between you and your vendor or contracts or whatever. Again, I want to say that for small initiatives or initiatives just getting started, that could be a deterrent. So just to be mindful of that. But yes, I think I'm kind of getting the impression from Jackie that there's a lot of like kind of tips and tricks to hone the IGF things, and I like that. I like that things that a person who's never planned the IGF before won't consider is right there. It's listed there that you can be like, public liability insurance, that never even occurred to me. And you won't find yourself in a position that we did.
Scrambling.
Right? Yeah. Especially as it relates to the remote, the live streaming and remote moderation, because it's so important to the actual event, to events such like this. So I didn't want to seem as if I was critical of what Jackie was suggesting, just because that's that whole tips and tricks thing and things that you wouldn't have thought about is I think really, really important to any kind of toolkit.
Kevin?
Yes, thanks, Nigel. Just a follow-up comment to that point that Asha was making. I just wanted to let you know there are some IGFs across Latin America that really started with just 6 people in some instances, 8 people. They had no clue what they were doing, and now they are initiatives that are mature because as they continued practicing, they picked up tips along the way, and they actually were very focused on what they went there to discuss to begin with. So there's a practical side to everything, and I think anything that we do in our individual territories has to be steeped in practicality.
Yeah, it has to be focused on the work. You know, you build the structure around what you want to achieve. Yeah.
One other thing, which is that all events are pretty much alike. And the difference and what makes a difference for each one is how you interact with your local stakeholders and the issues that they bring up. So because the stakeholders are not the same people in everyone, each one is absolutely going to be different based on that. But honestly, venues are venues, AV is AV, public liability, licenses and licenses are you know? So an event is an event is event. A lot of these things just have to be done. But your personality will be stamped by the content that is generated by the people, by the stakeholders that you have in the event.
Any comments online? Not seen. Okay. Okay, any other reports for us? So, they don't get any dessert or pay this evening or something. All right. So I'll ask Jacqueline that you send us the outline, and we'll include it in the report. I want to remind the spokespersons from yesterday as well, who have not yet submitted the reports, to send them in. Yes, to send them in, because as you see, we found useful the group reports from last year. It served as an input to our work for this year. So our reports from this year actually have a useful purpose as well. So kindly do send them in. All right, so it looks like we'll continue working on the Caribbean toolkit. We now have resources from ISOC, resources from the UN, IGF, and our own reports from last year, and the one that we'll have from this year as well. The thing is, it's always a challenge to put it together, right? And we usually take a little time in our CIGF to do some hard work, like trying to come up with these sorts of things. You have to think, you have to, under time pressure. And it's useful for us that, okay, if we have it during the course of the year or thereafter, in fact, it doesn't usually take that long, but still, we can, a little more at leisure, condense it, put it together such that it appears in our report. And that report is what really stays on the record for the future years. So please come through on behalf of all of us with the reports from the various groups. Okay, I think I will stop talking now and open the microphone to get feedback from you all. Participant comments, feedback, and recommendations. This is our open microphone session. It could relate to the content, it could relate to follow-up, it could relate to the organization. Having said that, what was I going to say? Right. One of the comments I will ask for in terms of the organization, though, the organization of the CIGF, or question I will put out there and for some comment is, while it hasn't to date been, the agenda has not been put together by a formal multi-stakeholder team, do we feel that has been a disadvantage to us, or and it is we propose going forward to establish this foundation which would have multi-stakeholder input and so on. Do you think we have suffered because we haven't had this multi-stakeholder team to start with? And maybe I'll leave the question right there. Or is it that yes or no?
It has to be yes or no. My comment has to be yes or no.
No.
So it's been my experience that sometimes if you want to do something, you have to work with what you have. Mm-hmm. So let's say ideally there will be CARIB-MAG and a call for inputs and this multi-stakeholder process that informs the topics that we discuss at every CIGF, right? But what happens when you have a call for inputs and you don't receive any? Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. I mean, we could go into...
Yeah, people might be interested or...
Yeah, right?
Whatever.
But whatever the reason is.
You don't have enough. Mm-hmm.
But we still want to have an IGF, right?
Mm-hmm.
So CTU takes up the responsibility, mm-hmm. and we have one. And we've seen how that's influenced the IG space in the Caribbean. I mean, now we have national initiatives. Mm-hmm. So I say all that to say that it's been in our experience sometimes that you have to work with who's willing to work with you. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not ideal, you do what you need to do, but with a view of essentially reaching or eventually reaching
out.
That.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to say perfect, but the ideal scenario. Yeah. So in this particular case, I'd say, does the CTU think that we've built enough IG capacity now that we can have that when you make a call for inputs, you will get them, and that you get good inputs that represent the rest of the region and the local communities? And if that's the case, then perhaps we can move towards that now. I mean, after maybe the 14th Caribbean AGF, we'll have something that looks like that. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you for that. Kevin?
Yes, thanks, Nigel. I wholeheartedly concur with what Asha was saying. I think in the beginning stages, the capacity wasn't there. You had individuals from the Caribbean who were involved in specific interests. I think now it's probably at a point where we do have a greater understanding as to what this internet ecosystem looks like. One of the things I would say that worked well for the CTU is that the CTU in its regular work, you cover a lot of issues related to internet development across the region. And I think we had said it, well, Jacqueline has said it, I strongly believe there is a pre-information role to discussion, and the CTU, I think, had been best placed as an authority on a regional level to understand what were the facts on the ground, and therefore we have a more informed discussion coming out of that. So probably now, I don't know if we still have, if we have other identifiable actors who can speak to human rights at a Caribbean level, someone who's monitoring human rights, someone who's monitoring other things. But probably now, as we are building capacity and realizing how expansive it is, there can be other persons coming to the fold in a sort of multi-stakeholder dispensation. But for what the CTO has achieved, I think it's very commendable, and I don't think there was an issue with that for our environment, for what we have done.
Okay, good. Remind us of your name when you come on, please.
Thank you. Joseph Ryan. Just one comment based on what was said. And I want to go back. This points back to the toolkit as well. It seems to me like it was just evident from the beginning that the assumption was made that internet governance is important. And I'm not saying it's not, but it's not been explicitly stated in the toolkit, or it hasn't been explicitly said. I understand that internet governance is important, but to the average person that sends 25 WhatsApp messages in 1 minute, or constantly scrolls on Facebook, do they know that internet governance is important? Do they understand that there is a tangible effect on them in using the internet? Have we done that sort of education? Because if you put out calls to stakeholders or calls to speakers or calls for input and no one's responding, it's because they don't think it's important for them to respond. This issue does not matter to me, or it doesn't affect me in any single way. So how do you explicitly state? How do you define your why? There's no driver. What are the risks, or what are the opportunities? If we were to have an IGF in the BVI, or if they were to say let's have an IGF in the BVI, I'd say no. That would not work next week. It would not work 2 months later, because no one actually cares at this point, because they don't know why. And we have to build that consensus over a period of time for them to realize, okay, yeah, we now understand that cybersecurity is important in the BVI because we had an event.
That's
there is now a why, there is a driver, there is something we have to do to prevent this from happening again. Now, if you can bring cybersecurity into internet governance, which you can, but you have to build this consensus of the why and then get the people demanding that something happen or something be done about it. And then you propose IGF as a solution.
Well, that's why I was happy to, and Albert made the comment himself, to see we had a session called DNS Sec for Financial Institutions. And Albert confessed, well, he was cognizant of his environment and realized that it would be advantageous to couch the message in that way. So, yes, I hear you in terms of making it relevant and important to people. And this is why in the 6 strategic areas, one of the things was public awareness. This is why the CTU did all those road shows to more or less educate people on what the technology can do for them. And in those road shows, also had certain sessions which indicated that the technology is great and wonderful. You could go on Facebook and WhatsApp and all these things, but you could only do that because certain people have come together, created technical standards, administrative arrangements and all kind of thing in order for you to have this service, right? And in doing that, okay, people's eyes get opened, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to get involved, right? But so what you have to do is kind of keep the message flowing that yes, you can get involved. Are you interested in this? Are you interested in that? And you'll get a few coming in. And over the years, we've seen some new faces get involved. But I agree with you, is making it real, relevant, important to the different publics.
And just one more point. One other thing that you can think about adding to the toolkit, he mentioned that Brazil, I think they started with 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
The lessons learned after each IGF should be a part of the toolkit. Any standard project management will have lessons learned, and that should be included. How did you grow from 6 to the capacity that you're at today? What were your lessons learned after each event? And then you also have to decide whether or not is the IGF meeting its goals that is set out in the beginning. And if it's not, the question is, do we continue with it, or do we change the goals of the strategy?
Yeah.
Can I just
Yeah,
say one
comment on
thing?
that specifically.
Well, I can talk to that specifically that, yes, it actually was mentioned in the post-event thing.
Oh.
That because
The lessons learned
does
part of it.
It says the event management plan.
Mm-hmm.
But no, what I wanted to say was something else entirely.
Well, no, well, we'll do
Ria, your turn.
Ria first, yes.
Okay, so I wanted to jump off of what he was saying and say that I think the CIGFs have evolved, and you've done a very, very important service to get it to this point. I want to get back to a point I made earlier where I believe from the Development Foundation standpoint, we have to start seeing ourselves as a disaggregated bunch of opinion leaders. And there is enough capacity in the room and the extended family of IGF practitioners in their specific spaces to become opinion leaders on behalf of the cause. And so what I see a lot of is a lot of opinions by ICANN, a lot of opinions by LACNIC, ARIN, but very seldom do I see opinions by people, in these individuals who are themselves advocates, professional advocates, representing a particular organization who can lend an opinion on a particular matter. And so Albert Daniel talking about a specific issue related to the financial services industry should in fact be a story to tell him as an opinion leader in that space, communicated and therefore channeled into that industry. And so we begin to widen our scope of influence as, again, a disaggregated bunch of opinion leaders that then creates that halo of confidence in CIGF that it is a destination to expand the value and utility of the internet for the sector that I belong to. And it goes back to, just very quickly to close off, to something Ashel said yesterday, which was storytelling. And so storytelling isn't necessarily something that we do at, very well, number one. And it really can only begin now because a lot of the work couldn't be done before. But storytelling is a very good way of now beginning to show that relevance as an extension of your point, that relevance and impact, food for thought, processes, things to consider and ponder, all under the halo of the CIGF, the CTU, and the various destination anchor organizations.
Okay. Well, I don't see any other hands.
Okay. One of the things that happens with regard to doing these things is everybody sees, oh, IGF, okay, let's go to an IGF. But in the proposed toolkit, there was, in the introduction, why have an NRA? A series of questions you ask yourself. Why am I doing this? Is this something important? And one of the things that we noticed is the intranet is that, Jacqueline Morris, Trinidad and Tobago, Mag, sorry, I forgot that. One of the things that we think is things happen when they're ready. Because, for what? How many years ago I was ready for IGF? And Tracy was ready for IGF. But the country wasn't ready for IGF. So we had to sit and wait, do our little, sensitization, talk to people, one-one, we talk to people, and then eventually, what now? 10 years after we were ready to do it, 10 years after the place was ready to have it.
Right.
But we can't force it ripe. It ripens at its own speed. So there's not necessarily a thing that says, I must have an IGF because everybody's having an IGF and the CTU wants us to have national IGFs and the global IGF and Marilyn Cade want us to have national IGFs. It may not happen. It may not happen for 5 years, 10 years. It may happen, your children may do some kind of, it will happen when it happens. And there's no rush. It's the same thing with ISOC chapters. Deirdre tried to do, how long ago we started talking about the ISOC chapter? 10 years. And when it was ready to happen, all of a sudden, look, 40 people in ISOC chapter popping up all over the place. Things will happen when they're ready to happen. And we need to make sure that we don't try and force people or organize or spaces or environments to move before they're ready.
Well, I'll say you don't want to force them to move before you're ready or before it's opportune, but certainly you'd want to build the interest over time. Yep. Sebastian. Where is your mic? Sebastian.
Thank you very much. To add to what Jacqueline was saying, I think it also has to come out of the community. Bottom up, and not top down. There is no way to force it, and you have to wait until the things are cooked in the community. It has to come from the community. If you try to force it, it's not going to fly. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, open mic, any topic? Do we have an online audience? I know that
St. Vincent has comments, Trinidad and Tobago, they have comments.
okay, well you could read them and they might spark some others. When you say they have comments, they or they would like to make comments. Yeah, okay. They're not coming on.
Trinidad and Tobago, they're saying, we would like to see more government stakeholders present next time. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have not made their comment, but they're interested in doing so.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines has said what?
No, they have not made a comment, but they're interested in doing so.
Oh, okay. I guess they're still, it's still cooking. The comment is still cooking. We have to wait for it to emerge.
Jolie is coming on.
Interesting comment about additional government representation. Is Julie making a comment?
Yes, sorry,
Yes. Yes.
I'm playing you back over there, so I have an echo locally. I just wanted to make, I thought Deirdre might raise this, which is accessibility and specifically the value of transcription, and which means, just for people to immediately follow what's going on, the comprehension. You can make word clouds. There's all kinds of reasons to have transcription, and it should be something that you should budget for.
On that same score, Julie, are you aware of any reasonably priced services that we might be able to consider?
Caption First is about $120 an hour.
All right, we could work that out and be in contact.
It's possible to use a thing which will allow you to overlay them on your screen that you have in the room, and also onto the webcast.
Right. Okay. Understood.
I was just saying that the court reporter transcription people, they are not as expensive as that.
Okay. Kevin.
Yes, Nigel. The comment on government involvement is very interesting, and it's not unique. It was a concern.
It's not unique.
It's not unique. It was a concern that had happened at CIGF, where the community really wanted to have government participation, but at a very high level. And what came out of that was back when Deirdre had participated in Mexico, they put CIGF back to back with the ministerial conference for ELAC. We know there are government employees in the room right now, and we know that they are already part of the converted, so that's not the issue, but there's still probably an issue in some of our countries with having that layer understand what this body of work is about. So the idea is that if you were to do it back to back, and you were to probably adjust the days of each conference, so the ministerial conference adjusted, this conference adjusted, you will have some ministers who will be interested enough to sit around and pick up what this type of environment is, how the interactions are, what really bring home the meaning of multi-stakeholder from that experience. You may not have them here for all of the days, but you may have them for some of the days, and that already is a start and a testament to how they can interpret it when they go back to their individual territories.
You were there in Mexico when it happened. Was it how was the interaction? Was it did they interact, or did it work? Is really what I'm asking.
It was a start. I would say it's a work in progress. It was a start, and you did have, as I said, some ministers who did see what this community was about. Of course, many things could be improved. It's still an ongoing question, but it was just one of the things to say that it's not unique.
Right. Albert? Yeah, and then Albert. You keep turning off your mic.
No, can we turn off the live streaming because of what I'm about to say? Sometimes, you have to use guerrilla tactics. And when it comes to dealing with the government representatives and so on, what I've found is that sometimes you get a little bit more success if you work with the advisor who can influence the minister. Sometimes what you need from the minister...
Like the gentleman across on the wall.
I never said, that's why I said I wanted this thing turned off, Sometimes when all you need from a minister, for example, might be an approval, a letter, a sign-off or something like that. And if you work with the guy who can get that sign-off, then in the end, you're able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And sometimes, it's easier to wait for the coffee break or the lunch or the social activity in the evening, and wait until closer to the end of that activity and you tackle, the advisor. If the minister is there also, you don't need to make a call through the secretary, wait, 2 weeks for an appointment. You can tackle them right there and then. So the other thing we say, at ICANN meetings is that the karaoke and the socials are just as important as the formal sit-down events like this, because those are the places where you build the relationships. I mean, your perception changes after a few glasses of fruit juice.
Yes.
And people speak a little bit more openly. And sometimes you have to really assess your environment and take actions based on, your assessment of the kind of environment that you're trying to accomplish things in.
Sebastian?
Oh, thank you. I think we have to also to realize that we have to offer to the government officials is not that sexy, too. What I mean by that, all of you that are in the government or used to be in the government, if your boss sends you to a meeting and you come back and you say, okay, what did you do in BVI these days? Okay, we chat. And what's the declaration of Tortola where we put the text? No, there is no such thing. And it's really hard to bite. It's really hard to bite. So there is a lot of education activities that we have to do in order to demonstrate the value of the process that we're doing. Because let me tell you something about the IGF and why the IGFs in general don't have a document at the end, because it's not a bug. It's a feature of the IGFs. It's like that by design. On the other hand, as I said, I've been putting myself in the shoes of the government fellow. What happens when you have a document to sign at a given meeting or event or congress or whatever, the declaration of Tortola, is that or there is two possibilities basically. One, when you arrive to BVI, the document is already closed beforehand. So what we discuss here is absolutely por la galería. Makes no sense at all because has no impact in the document at all. Or if they fail, the document will be finalized here in a closed room, a small room over there, in which case what we say here has is still por la galería and doesn't impact the document at all. In order to prevent that, we decided not to have a final document. So we can discuss here, and what we say is relevant to all of us. So that brings a lot of good things to the process, but some downsides. One downside, and I urge you to put again into the shoes of the government officer, is that you don't have nothing to bring back home to your boss. And that's a big hurdle for government officials. So let's try to promote the way, the multi-stakeholder IGF way is based on iterations. To repeat the process and repeat the process all over, and you keep moving forward in that way. We discussed today something. We didn't reach agreements. There is no need to reach agreements. There is no consensus needed. But when we meet together next year, we're going to start the discussions where we left today. So we are going, year after year, we're moving forward. We're building up. That's the process, and we have to promote it that way in order to make it sexy for government officers that cannot bring the document back home.
Well, we won't wait until next year to make the progression. We'll try to work on it in the interim, yeah. Who? Yeah, they're ready now? Is this St. Vincent? Trinidad and Tobago? Okay. Let them go ahead.
Hi. One of the things that I wanted to put a highlight on over the last couple of days was the fact that I'll just simply piggyback on the comment of the last contributor. One of the reasons why we don't get traction for policy and change of thinking in the Caribbean is because our general thinking of change from a change management perspective is bad. We usually wait for a large external force of some type, of some form, of some language, of some continent to initiate the change. My suggestion is a sandbox approach. We are small islands, money is important, the economy is down, etc. But what is really important for us is that we take small steps. There are a list of things discussed over the last 3 days. Pick one, pick two, pick three, and bring the universities, the regional one and the national universities together, and have sandboxes on each one. And after a period of time, we can then say, okay, we had this sandbox, we had that sandbox, what we learned, what was good, what was bad. And from that, we pick the things that work, and those things that work, we implement or we discuss. So when we are discussing, we're not discussing based from a high level, we're discussing because there's some level of regional practical use of these technologies or these methodologies. And based on that, when it's time for us to implement or we speak to government, we can now say, okay, we have tested this over the last 2 IGFs or 2 conferences. And this is a study, this is what was done in Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, whatever, in the sandbox. This worked, this did not work for the Caribbean because it's based on something in Europe, but this worked. Let's try to implement this. So for me, it has always been a lot of talk about sandboxing, a lot of talk about what we want to do, but not a lot of trial and error, because all these methodologies and suggestions came from a level of sandboxing. And because it came from a level of sandboxing, now they can now publish these pieces of information. What I'm advocating is for us to take that information, refine it, try it out in the Caribbean. If it works, we discuss it. If it doesn't, then we move on.
Thank you. So it's an approach where you do a little more trial rather than wait until and try to work to get things perfect before anything actually gets done. So try things in limited environments, sandboxing it as he described it, such that if it doesn't work, the impact of it is contained. If it works, well, then you take it out and put it to wider use. So I've taken down the note there from that. I had a hand in the back. Was it you, Deidre?
Now. Deirdre Williams from St. Lucia. While you're talking about inclusion and government ministers, I would like to make again an appeal I made at the end of the LAC IGF in Panama a couple of weeks ago. And I apologize publicly to them again for presuming to speak on their behalf, because they will tell you their slogan is nothing about us without us. Mm-hmm. But persons with disabilities stand to benefit probably more than anybody else from what ICT and the internet can do for them, and they should be here to talk about that themselves. So next time it would be very good if they were included as well. And the other group, which is notably not here and I strongly feel should be, are young people. Managing actual children at a meeting like this could be difficult. I can understand that. But managing young people isn't. Their attention span hopefully is a bit longer, and they have a contribution to make. They probably think that we're all a whole lot of fuddy-duddies that don't know very much about it because they're there first. But they need to be here. And they were there at the IGF in St. Lucia all those years ago. And they can be here again now next year, please. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess they weren't actively sourced, but it's not that they were excluded. Like, for example, in St. Lucia, we didn't actively source, but the local environment was such that people brought them to it, and they were welcome. So but I've taken a note about the PWDs and the youth. The person with disabilities, again, we didn't make any specific solicitation in this particular instance. I suppose we still, in the CTU, have that group sort of compartmentalized to the things we have for them. And we do address them, and we do have this special project that we're working on with the communication for persons with disabilities, but I think the general inclusion is a good comment to take. Rudy in the corner. Yes, you do, because we have remote participants. It should be right there somewhere. Oh, right.
Nigel, can I just signal my interest to you in PWDs, Persons with Disabilities, the project? Because I'm at home, I am responsible for the National Paralympic movement, which is all about sports in the sports in the community for disability persons. So I can quite easily extend that to which I would like to ensure that they have a voice at the level of internet governance. Okay, so I'm signaling that to both you and Roxanne John. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm at 4:27. Our scheduled closing time is 4:30. Do you have any more comments from online? No? No more comments in the room?
They're just
Yes.
supporting Deidre's comment about youth participation and saying that some fellowship slots should be dedicated to youth.
We just have to figure out how to select them.
Nigel, may I? Again, because I forgot about a group that is, I should have remembered them, and that is also people who are elderly. There are more and more and more in the world now of people who are elderly who can also be helped by ICT, perhaps because of disability, perhaps simply with opening up a wider social world that helps to make their life more comfortable and interesting. And it would probably be a good idea to build them into your meetings as well, and into the toolkit, of course, for other people to consider that sort of inclusion.
Yeah, we consider the elderly in our well, I guess along with our persons with disabilities as well. So, and I suppose because there is some overlap there, but I take that. St. Vincent, are they ready now? Okay.
Hi, good day, everyone. Janelle McIntyre, I'm the moderator for the ISOP SVG forum that we're hosting here remotely. We're really enjoying the presentations today, and we just wanted to contribute on um, youth and elderly. Our focus here, we thought that grassroots awareness, an approach from a grassroots level is required because these are two groups that are usually overlooked. We're considering governmental levels, businesses, but the youth, which we can say is the access point into society, and the level that most grooming takes place through education, what initiatives are being put in place, or what focus are we putting towards that as a key access point into society to ensure that the concept of internet governance from that access point is developed as something as fundamental. So coming out of education into the workforce, into society, our youth comes into society and the workforce already having in mind that internet governance, like social governance and work ethic governance or concepts, is something that is fundamental to their growth, their development, their existence as a human being in a general society, regardless of what country, what region. And I think looking at the curriculum and having access points to curriculum development around internet governance as a topic or as a sub-factor in IT or general educational subjects, could be something that we also look at as well. So that was what we wanted to contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We seem to have a comment on their comment from St. Lucia. No? It's a different comment. Okay.
I didn't make much contribution to the discussions, but except for when, Gregor Williams from St. Lucia. I did make some contribution in the discussion. However, on behalf of, before I say that, among your initiatives, we had left out women, so no gender. So please include that in your initiatives. But on behalf of all of us, I would like to say a very special thank you to Nigel for a great job that he's done for the last 3 days.
Thank you, thank you.
And we hope that he'll be able to keep up the good health and the good faith and everything else and have a long life with us. Thank you very much, Nigel, on behalf of everybody.
Thank you for that. It's my pleasure, really. So, Mr. Rudy Daniel wants to close the show. Well, that's the last comment. Yours will be the last comment. You will close the show. Oh, Roxanne. Oh, she didn't put. I didn't see a hand up. No, I didn't see it. When you're in Parliament, you have to catch the speaker's eye. So if you don't catch the speaker's eye, you don't get to speak. So.
Okay. Well, briefly, I would just want to thank the major players in internet governance in the region. CTU, of course. Thank you for the work you have been doing and the ongoing discussions. And I just want to thank also ISOC. Shannon, he has been a very good support to us. And we have Nancy from ISOC, and also thank Jolly to making this streaming possible for us. And at the hub in St. Vincent and Grenadines, the first time that we were able to connect, and we're very grateful for that. And of course, we will have brought quite a bit of awareness to Vincentians who will have participated in the hub and who also will have been streaming live. Because when I realized we have over 101 persons who areas have reached and much more over the past 3 days. And also want to thank Albert Daniel's icon. Of course, he has always been there for us, giving us a lot of support while we were able to get off the ground very quickly as a chapter. And we see so many opportunities. And of course, more internet governance initiatives will be coming up, and other initiatives regards to the internet development. And we just want to thank everybody for the opportunity. And it was a very, very good and interesting 3 days. We learned a lot. Of course, it's open forum with discussions. We dealt with different topics, and I'm sure much more topics will be dealt with in the future. So I just want to commend everybody, and let us continue to keep up the good work, keep up the conversation, keep up the discussions, keep up the forum.
Thank you very much, Roxanne. So I don't have much more to say. We'll let Rudy make his comment.
Yeah, the caller from St. Vincent.
Uh-huh.
I just want to make a point. This is what IG and local stuff is all about. If you're interested in, if you have an interest in pursuing a youth IGF or getting the youth involved, then you start at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So if you have that interest and nobody else is doing it, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we start. And then you connect with other people who are doing, and then you build a capacity there. So I hope that we will in St. Vincent, you know, along the way, pull in the youth in whatever form that we do that, because it is very necessary. I think I made a comment to someone the other day, let's take all the 14 to 18-year-olds and teach them how to hack. But, you know, as a cybersecurity thing. But, you know, it's a local, you have to look at what you have locally, what you want to do, and how you want to do it. And I think that that's the way we come together as a family. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Rudy closes the show. I will just do a quick wrap-up, I suppose I can say. Over the past 3 days, basically, we've gone through our agenda. We've learned a bit, in particular, on the first day. We've learned through discussions and workshops over the last 2 days. We've had the opportunity to network a bit, both in the room and outside. And I think we've succeeded with our intention here through all that we have done. In winding up, I can see that we have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of compiling the various comments from all the sessions and reports. And I'm pretty certain that based on our schedule at the Secretariat over the next 6 weeks, that we probably would not get this done before sometime in October. For sometime in October. So, however, we need to get started on it right away. And again, I'll make the appeal for the any outstanding reports from the groups to be emailed into me, such that we can be sure that it be included in the work that we do. What will probably happen in terms of this report being put together is that it'll probably be put together in sections. So the workshop reports, if they come in, we'll be able to do that, you know, before it gets stale in everyone's mind. So please send them in as early as possible. I'll send out reminders to the extent that I'm able to do so. It's basically now to say thanks, I guess. Again, I'll start with the thanks to our sponsors. We've thanked them throughout the duration, but definitely without them, we would not have been able to, we would not have had the resources to have the meeting and all the remote participation and everything that we were able to. Here locally, we have the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission and FLO. And in the room, some representatives and others not in the room, representatives, our sponsors from Google ICANN, ARIN, LACNIC, ISOC, Facebook, and the IGF Support Association. Thank you very much for your continued support and even attendance. I think that it makes it's quite gratifying to us to see that you are participating, and it means that you see some value to really what we are doing. I'll say thanks to my CTU support staff here who have been helping me with running this meeting and following up with the moderation and so on. And I'll want to mention Lauren and Garth, that's our event planners in the back there, who allow me basically just to study what's on the program. You know, anything else that I need to get done, I just quickly say, Lauren, this, that, or the other, and I don't have to worry about it. You could focus on what's on the program. Say thanks to our AVT, Mr. Cox and Shane, and I didn't get this one's name, but Mr. Cox and his team. I think we were here Sunday evening testing the Zoom, making sure we understood what levels we needed to have the different audio channels at to avoid feedback. And I think over the 3 days that any incidents were kept to a minimum. So I think we learned something. So thanks a lot, folks, for helping to make a successful meeting. Roxanne mentioned Jolie McPhee, who handles the live stream for us. Jolie is very busy with IGFs all over the world. So thank you very much, Jolie, for putting us out there as well. And we look forward to getting the link to the archive as well. That's one great benefit to doing the live stream, that you get an archive that you can refer to, which is often a help when you're doing your report sometime thereafter. I want to thank all of you participants here in the room and the ones remotely, all the remote presenters. We had, I think, some rich interventions from the remote hubs in Barbados, St. Vincent, Trinidad and Tobago. Also rich interventions from the remote presenters, Google, our own SG, and from the IGF Secretariat. All of this was made possible by the combined or coordinated efforts of all in terms of local and international connectivity. Thanks to all of you for taking the time. Many have traveled far, and your input and contributions is really what makes the value to the forum. Lastly, I would thank our hosts, the government of the Virgin Islands. Yes, we do have Mr. St-Hilaire here with us. We at the CTU, thank you very much for working with us to put on this. And the reason why we move around the Caribbean with the event is because it gives an opportunity to different countries and territories to get exposure to the expertise in this room, to get to know some of the practitioners around the Caribbean. And your assistance is very much appreciated in having it here, and especially given the challenges you had to go through a couple of weeks ago. In fact, we weren't even aware at the time, but it's just in following up that we found out about it. And we can still see some evidence of the stresses that you went through. And it's one ministry, communications and works. And if you have a disaster like that on your hands, I can understand that would take priority. But I think we still managed to have a successful and very good event. So thank you very much to the government of the Virgin Islands. Oh, and here is Mr. Swain. The Honorable Mr. Robert Swain. He was the lead logistics coordinator for this whole event, so he needs a special round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. The next event like this that we'll have will, of course, be the 14th CIGF, and we look forward to that. That actually, we have had the government of Suriname offer to host that, so we likely would be in Suriname in 2018, sometime in August in 2018. So we definitely look forward to that. But in the interim, as I mentioned, the CTU will look to get going its online forum, its online, or resume its online Internet Governance Forum, such that we could remain abreast and in contact and discussing topical issues of the day and ones that might arise in the immediate future. So at that, I would say one final thank you to all, and we look forward to seeing you again at the 14th CIGF, probably sometime in August in Suriname next year. Thank you. We're done.
Group in the room like we had originally planned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mike,